Alrighty. Yes, hello everyone. We have 6 TASs that we're showing off. 4 from the 8bitbeast here, 2 from myself. Shall we get started?
Yeah, let's get stuck into it.
Alright. Okay, let's start in 3, 2, 1, go.
Alrighty, can anyone guess the game? We're playing Metroid 1. Now, I have a lot to say about what TASs are in general, but this is going to get real intense real quick, so we'll leave that for a bit later. For now, it's pretty much as if you were playing just like a perfect speedrun with no mistakes and a lot of shenanigans and play around involved. I spent about 4,000 redos at this room trying to save like a single frame. There's lots of like little subtle stuff here, but we're about to see the very first glitch where we get stuck in a door. Yeah, this is not meant to happen. So normally you'd need the Morphball and the bomb upgrade to get through there, but in TAS and RTA we can clip through the door there and get underneath. We are heading down into Kraid's Lair, which is one of the 2 bosses of this game and has some of the best music in this game. So normally in this game you beat 2 bosses. You beat Kraid and Ridley. That unlocks a bridge to get to the final area of the game. And then you just go and beat Mother Brain. We're not going to beat Ridley at all, and literally the only reason we're beating Kraid is for missiles. So door glitch is going to be the most common and broken glitch of this game. We use it to get out of bounds just all over the place, and you might also notice that someone's wrapped around the screen there. So all this is just to get right down to the bottom to Kraid really quickly. There is a little issue when we're getting towards Kraid. There's this like missile door that we need to get through. Red doors you need missiles to get through, but in the TAS we're going to have a cheeky little way to get through that door. Someone's just having a grand old time going up the screen there. And you can see that red door that we just went through. We should not be able to get through that yet. So before I made this TAS, it was about 20 seconds slower, the original TAS. One of the big time saves along with the minor optimizations was getting through that door a little bit faster. And you get style points for shooting your bullets in a triangle like that. This is where TAS and RTA differ a little bit. Often you'll find that there's different rule sets and timings for TASs. So TASs always start their timing from when you power on the console, which is a little bit different to RTA. Usually they do that from file select. So you see games like Mario Brothers 1, the TASs are locked into very particular frame rules for that one. They can't just wait on the title screen, for example. Metroid's a little bit different because I use like a little save reset sequence, which caused some of us to die. RTA tends not to use that. So we're about to do the really big climb up to get towards Mother Brain here. So this game runs a lot on something called subpixels. So when Samus jumps, it could be at various different starting heights, all of which are visually the same, but actually quite different under the hood. So this little hallway up here, I remember I TASed this when I was in uni and I was just like sitting on the train like with a little notebook mapping out all the subpixel values. Not the most optimal way to make this TAS, but hey, I had to keep myself entertained. So if you compare that climb to like a climb in RTA, you'll notice that it is quite a bit faster, and that's just purely because of those invisible micro optimizations. The other thing that TASs do a lot of is reduce lag, so we have really good tools for monitoring how much the game is lagging and everything, and we can just save time just absolutely everywhere. So just, you know, it's a game that's pretty boring and straightforward, like you're running right at this point, but there's so much going on just to save the little bit of time. I'll talk briefly about how TASs are actually made. So I think, I know there's a lot of TASs probably in the room. Shout out to Cradle Bagel in the audience, for example. But yeah, so some people are really familiar with the process, others not so much. Essentially, we just slow down the game and play it really slowly. We redo sections over and over and over to try and get it perfect. There are no hacks in TASs. Everything you see here can absolutely be done on a console, can be done with a controller if you had like absolutely precise robot timing. And the TAS essentially when it's done is just a really long big list of buttons that we want to press. Like I want to press the jump button there or the shoot button there. And because NES consoles, an example, are deterministic, all the RNG is going to be exactly the same. So we'll get the same luck no matter what we do, as long as we press buttons at the same time. And previously, I think there was a very big gap between TAS and RTA because RTA runners were doing a lot by feel, but the communities work really closely together now. So quite often we'll find a setup in TAS and then that'll make its way into RTA, like with all your RNG manipulation in an RPG or stuff like that. The other thing with TASs is we do go as fast as possible, but since you have complete control over what's happening in the game, we try and go for style points as much as we can. So that's why you'll see in a lot of rooms I'm sort of like jumping or shooting with the music and just like doing random stuff just to try and make it more interesting. My favorite is Samus just like facing the camera going through a door. The other thing you'll see, like in the Mario TAS, for example, because that's all on frame rules, they can slow down and do lots to save time there.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, oh, go on.
No, you go first.
Little door on screen there. So there are small optimizations in this game, like you can shoot open doors, and pretty much if you're shooting enemies or shooting doors, you're reducing lag as much as possible. Freezing enemies can also be really good for reducing lag there. And what we're coming up to now is going to be sort of the bridge skip. So there are various different ways to do this skip. The way that we're doing it here is by manipulating this enemy into the room. So the enemy's just going to come through the door there and probably hit us on the way through. And then all we need to do is just freeze that enemy with the ice beam and make our way through the door. So that's the other thing that's sort of required for this run is the ice beam. And if you're playing it in RTA, the ice beam is going to be really useful for freezing the Metroids too. Because you need to freeze the Metroids to get more missile power-ups, and missiles tend to be really the bottleneck for this TAS. Now, if you play this game casually, you'll know the little red ring enemies, the Cheerios, tend to spawn in. I'm actually going to be doing some manipulation of those Cheerios. So essentially, the Cheerios spawn in every 4 frames, and if the game is paused, they're not going to spawn in, but that little timer still runs when the game is paused. So often when I go through doors in this area, the game's going to get really choppy, pausing and unpausing, and you'll notice that there's basically no Cheerios that spawned in there. There's also a little glitch where you can make Samus just like float for some reason in Morph Ball. I forget exactly why that happens, but it's like some spacing between the roof and the floor there. So along with just slowing down the game and playing it perfectly, we also have a whole range of tools like Lewis scripting and RAM watch. So rather than visually watching on screen where Samus is and like figuring that out, I can just make it spit out the exact number, which is the X coordinate or the Y coordinate. And it really helps with optimizing the TAS seeing the numbers rather than just trying to eyeball it and figure out where you are. Although definitely when I started TASing, I used the eyeball method a little bit more often.
I mean, yeah, you won't be able to see subpixels eyeballing it, right?
Absolutely. And you might just save a frame or two, which is like 1/60th of a second by doing that, or if you're playing a game which relies on subpixel clips, you could just save a whole bunch of time by finding new glitches. And quite often a glitch will be found in a TAS setting and come across to RTA. Yeah. We got the little mother brain fight here. You'll see I end on exactly 0 missiles, so everything's planned out perfectly for that.
Epilepsy warning.
Yeah, apologies about that. But yeah, that's part of the reason why we beat Kraid earlier, so that we'd have the missiles to beat that. It's actually possible to beat the game without beating Kraid, but then you're just going around and collecting missiles. It ends up being a lot slower. And there's also a low percent category for this game. I think it doesn't get the ice beam from memory. And the 100% TAS probably could stand a bit more optimization, but this TAS took me months to make, so I wasn't keen on doing a 40-minute one.
So what was the time for that?
Yeah, so the time for that one was 7:57. I think there's been a couple of small optimizations found since I've TASed it. And that can actually be the really brutal thing about TASing games. Sometimes time save is found right after you finish making your 2-year TAS. Kind of like Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah. Alright, so this is Alex Kidd in Shinobi World, right? Yes. Yeah,
so it's no secret, I absolutely love the Sega Master System, so we'll see a couple of those TASs today. So this is an Alex Kidd game. Alex Kidd is like the Mario of the Master System, and they've like crossed it over with Shinobi. We see a glitch on this stage on the ladder. Don't miss it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's happening on that ladder there, if you press, I think it's left or right or up and down at the same time on your controller, then the game just really doesn't know what to do and it causes you to zip all around the screen. So that's one big difference between TAS and RTA for a lot of games. So yeah, games often don't expect you to press left and right at the same time because the controllers can't. Also, shout outs to Mario.
Yeah.
No resemblance at all. But yeah, with the left and right on the controllers are not supposed to be able to do that, but it is allowed in TASs because technically the console can take that input. Now, the Master System is a very special case. The Brazilian community is actually really big for the Master System. They just love the Sega over there. And so there's this company called Tectoy, which still released the Master System all the way up to, I think, 2005 or something like that. But the quality of the Tectoy controllers wasn't that good. And if you press really hard, you can actually press left and right at the same time on their D-pads. So it's almost a bit more justified to allow that in Master System TASs, but it's pretty much allowed across the board. Like, I keep referencing Mario 1, but that uses left and right at the same time to save a little bit of time. It's always a controversial one, though, putting that in.
I think SNES in particular has a weird thing where the console can take button inputs for 4 extra buttons that technically aren't on a regular controller.
That's great. Alright, I think we have a boss fight coming up, if I'm not mistaken. It's Heli. This has intense RNG manipulation. Check this out. All the helicopters are supposed to fly like all over the screen, but if you're in a TAS, you can just manipulate RNG to make them all just fly towards you. That fight is a huge run killer in RTA, and it pretty much makes or breaks every single run. But in TAS, that's just where I save most of the time over RTA here. We'll see a tornado glitch here. This is the same sort of screen zipping there. Same concept as the ladder glitch, you're just pressing left or right. And that level is a little bit faster than RTA, just slightly. This, unfortunately, as I said, sometimes time saves get found after you finish making the TAS. This level is one example. One of the RTA runners spotted just this little blob guy I have to take damage on. He's a very happy blob. But yeah, there's a way that you can avoid him spawning and it would have saved 4 frames. So unfortunately, that's just the case. I know Banjo-Kazooie, for example, we found like a 2-minute time save the week after the TAS was made. So it just happens, but sometimes TASs will take 2 or 3 years to make. So you've just, it's always the trade-off. Stuff will get found while you're making it. I will also point out that there's a bit of a misconception with TASs, like, especially with the rise of AI, like a lot of people will think you can just press the make a TAS button and the TAS is finished. That is often not the case. Like, runners are painstakingly sitting down and mapping out every tiny small section of the game to save time. Sometimes runners will use scripts to automate parts of this, but other times you're literally just sitting there trying a whole bunch. What if I jump here? Is that faster? What if I jump there? Is that faster? And so you end up building up a really intricate knowledge of the game. And if I TAS a game and run at RTA, I find that the TASing really, really helps me improve my RTA time.
Yeah, and even the brute force approach, that often requires quite a lot of ruling out possibilities and is quite time consuming anyway.
Yeah, and there was a bit of brute forcing in the recent Mario 1. I gotta stop talking about Mario 1. The recent Mario 1 TAS, but that was only very small sections that they were taking brute force. The other thing I should mention very briefly was the RNG manipulation that I did on the boss there. I think Input's going to talk a lot more about it later, but essentially you can just change slight timings on when you do things or like jump in a different spot and it'll usually help. Also swamps, so even the game's talking about Mario 1. Mario 3, I guess. We're coming up towards the end of this TAS. It's a very short game here. I'm just going to see the final boss. Boss fights are always really fun to TAS because you can just look in the memory watch about where the bosses are invincible, and usually you've optimized the boss fight as much as possible because you're just hitting on the first possible frame that is vulnerable. Beyond that, you might actually just be doing different things with boss patterns and stuff, but more often than not, you can just optimize the bosses perfectly. And usually just add in like a little bit of play around there wherever you can.
So, how long did this TAS take you to make?
Because this one's pretty short, I think it was like a few weeks. Probably my longest TAS was the Crash 3 TAS, which took me like a year and a half. But yeah, it just depends on the complexity of the game, and 2D games are always going to be a bit quicker to make than 3D ones, just because there's less one-dimension, less possibilities to test. But quite often making a TAS, I'm almost just testing every possibility.
Yep.
And you're up with yours.
Yep. So what's the time of that while we sit through this ad?
5 minutes 27 for the Alex Kidd TAS versus 7:11 for RTA. But it's really important you never directly compare them too much because it's a totally different game, TASing versus RTA.
Yeah, so now we get to the first casual Zoomer game TAS of the run, Papa's Donuteria. So, yes, I started working on this a little bit ago, and was able to finish it before the event, thankfully. Yeah, so here, this TAS is going to be very heavily dependent on RNG, and the reason for that is that we're working on a 5-day cycle. To get to rank 5, which is the category for this task, we're not going through all 65 ranks because that would be hours, we're just getting to rank 5. You need to accumulate points from customers to get enough to move up a rank, and you need 1,680 points to get to rank 5. To get there in 5 days, which is the minimum you can, you need to get a customer who you have on day 1, which in this case is James, to you need him to come in all 5 days, and so we need to use RNG manipulation to make sure that happens, so that on the 5th day, we get a bronze customer medal for him, and that will give us triple the amount of points and push us over the line. So yes, this day is a bit simpler, we're just sort of sitting through the tutorial for this. Yeah, there's a lot of time management involved in this task, but you'll see more of that starting from the next day. At the end of each day, we quit out and re-enter the save file. It saves a little bit of time. Yes, you do have to sit through an ad in the original Flash game every single time you start a day. You would normally get a much bigger variety, but to make this task work, I had to kill the internet, so you're only getting Papa's Freezeria to go. I'm sorry about that. Yes, so here things get more complicated. We're gonna start seeing a thing called Customer Glitch. That's the name the RTA community uses for it. If you click on the order station a certain number of times, twice namely, the game will basically force another customer to spawn. As it turns out, that's not a glitch, it's an intended mechanic, so that if you're checking the order station a lot while you're, then it'll get someone in sooner, so that you're not just wasting your time for nothing. But I guess the glitch end here is that it will do this regardless of whether you actually go to the order station, so we can just click the button while we're still in the transition to another station, and it will work. We won't have to waste time going back. Yes, I've gone for aesthetically pleasing sprinkles on all of the donuts. The drizzle varies a bit more. I don't even understand completely the rules of how scoring for that works. I just did what happened to work out. Yes, so in terms of optimizing the RNG, I actually tasked Papa's Pizzeria before this, and with that I was manually changing a certain input to call the RNG again, seeing how that unfolded, doing that over and over, and that was a massive waste of time. So for this, what I did is I actually wrote another Flash game, and every time I reached the end of the day, I would add in some extra code into that program to simulate all the RNG calls that had happened for that day, and so then after running that, I'd get a I'd get about 300 different ways that the day would unfold, depending on how many extra RNG calls I inserted into the previous day. So that helped me a lot, and that sort of shows how, although it's not necessary to make TASs, if you have some basic programming knowledge, you can really use that to help slightly with the process, both in making your task more optimized and in saving yourself some time in making it. Yes. So, yes. Yeah, that's the RNG manipulation. When you try and put a ticket there, it will put it to a, and there's something else there, it will move the ticket there to a random position on the right, and that, and yes, so I'm just throwing in some extra RNG calls to get it to where it needs to be. Yes. Now, if you've played this game on Cool Maths Games, you may be wondering, why didn't you just test that version so that we didn't have to see ads in between every single day? The RTA community actually doesn't allow Cool Maths Games. They say you have to play on the original version with the ad intervals so that it's fair, and so I chose to use the original for this one, as well. Yes. So yes, I've kind of been glossing over it, but yeah, there was a lot of planning for each day in terms of how I managed all of the customers' orders as well. I need to make sure I'm getting enough points across all the customers in terms of like, especially in terms of how many toppings I've put on, how well I've put them on, and how long they've been in the fryer. And so I was making Word documents with a lot of detail, sort of planning out all of those moments that I'd need to be flipping over donuts, taking them out, visiting the order station for the next customer, and so on. Basically just trying to minimize the amount of time in which I'm just waiting around for something to happen as much as possible. Do we have any donations that we can throw in now?
We don't have any donations at the moment, but I'll just briefly say that in addition to donating, any Twitch revenue we receive throughout the event will also be given to Game on Cancer, so that includes bits and subs to AusSpeedruns as another way to support Game on Cancer. So if anyone has any Prime subs they haven't used up, now is a good time to use it up now.
Yeah, so on day 4 you're actually seeing a new trick which I found very late in the making of this task. Sorry, I'm getting very dry in the throat. Yeah, I didn't have enough time to implement it earlier in the process, but it turns out that if you insert the filling into a donut at the very last possible moment, you can actually get it to transition to the screen where you're doing sprinkles and drizzles earlier, as if you hadn't done it at all, but you still get to have it count towards your points, which is very useful for saving time. Probably would save a few seconds overall across the run. There are some other things I noticed towards the end. I might go and optimize that, implement that in after this event's over and I have some more time on my hands, but yeah. So now we're going into the final day of the TAS, and yes, we get our hire. There is technically a intentional 2-frame time loss in this TAS. I like playing as the female worker, so I chose the female worker in this task, even though it costs 2 frames. Yeah. Has no bearing on the run. I just enjoy it.
That's pretty common to do in TASs as well. Like, if something's more entertaining, people will do it, even if it's a bit slower.
Except for this time the audience is just me. Yes. So, yep. Oh yeah, and something I can actually mention about the mail worker in this game is it's actually one of the game's developers. They put the game's developers in as customers, and then for each game they hold like online polls for which customers people want to be the next workers, and you know, on 2 separate occasions, both of the developers who make this game got voted in by the community as the workers, so that's pretty funny. Yes, so getting towards the end of this task, spoilers, it comes in at just slightly under 11 minutes, 10 minutes 59.53. RTA is actually a bit complicated. You could say in some ways that this task ends input early by RTA standards, because officially the timer stops when it shows you reaching rank 5. However, in practice, it seems that if you quit out to the menu when you reach rank 5, that gets treated as the end point. But I didn't do that, so me handing in that order, that was my last input, that's where the task timing ended, and so purely on an RTA sense, I'm technically losing time here by not doing that, but it properly adjusted, it comes to about 10 minutes 50, which is about 2 minutes 43 faster than the current world record. So yeah, that was Papa Stone Arteria, and now we're gonna get back to 8-bit's work.
I'm so hungry after watching that. All right, so previously what we've seen is TAS is just made by myself and Input. This TAS has a few authors. Fat Rat Knight, Pirate Sephiroth, Exonym, Blue Perrier, 8bitbeast, Mittens, TJ Blakely, Lapone36, and Memory made this TAS. Now, this is a McDonald's game released only in Japan, starring the one and only Donald McDonald. For some reason, he's called Donald, not Ronald in Japan. And now you might be wondering, why do 8 TASs care about this obscure Japanese Famicom game? The reason is this is part of the Dream Team contest. So every year, TAS Videos runs like a TASing competition. So we set up groups of 4 and then all compete against each other. So there were actually, I think, 8 groups of 4. So like 32 people that worked on this TAS. And the 8 authors that are on the final product are the ones who had the fast levels that the inputs were used. I think I made about 2 seconds of this TAS, and the other 8 minutes were made by those other authors. But basically what we did was we stitched together all the best levels from everyone. The other thing I should mention, Input was saying some improvements in the TAS we just watched. Sometimes in TASs when you find improvements, you can't just implement an improvement in level 1 without losing all of your progress. So if you change something in level 1, quite often you'll have to then redo every single other level in the TAS. So it's not as simple as just snipping in an improvement here or there as you go. You have to do it sequentially. But that'll depend game to game. Like some games we call sync friendly, means that you can snip in improvements, but a game like this you can't. So you have to sort of TAS it from the start each time. Now, what the heck is going on in this game? So Donald can throw apples, and basically the way that the velocity and like momentum work in this game, if you jump off an object that is moving forward, you get the speed of the object that was moving forward. The only level where that's not the case is this Sky World. So this is sort of like a different mechanic level here. You'll notice still some apple boosts coming off these enemies here. So we're boosting off that apple there, but this level's pretty limited. Now there is one glitch that I need to talk about, which is like the wrong warp glitch. So a couple of the levels in this game have doors. So the next level after Skyworld has a door which brings you into the boss. The way that doors work in this game is that you have like a particular level tile which counts as a door tile, and then when you stand on that tile it warps you to the next room. Now Skyworld doesn't have any doors because it's one big room, but what we're going to do is clip into the roof here and yeah, just move along like that. The reason we did that is because we want to spawn a particular tile in the boss fight here. And we're going to beat the boss and stand on that top window tile there. Now that's just a window in this level, but that same tile counts as a door tile in the next level, and the game has one frame where it doesn't clear off the tile you're standing on. So by standing on that window, we just instantly, as soon as we load in, warp to the end of the level. And I actually never knew what these characters were, but apparently they're like the fry kids, they're related to French fries. You learn a lot about McDonald's playing this game. So next level we're going to see, we'll actually see some normal boosting. So I'll talk a little bit about that. The winning team for this did a really good job optimizing the boosting. You got a bit of a trade-off. You don't want to gain too much height because if you do, you can't ride the apples down optimally. There's also a really weird glitch. You'll notice Donald sort of like floating up very slowly, and that's just pressing the jump button like really quickly on and off and on and off. You'll also notice we're just standing here and waiting. This is for the level tiles to properly load in because we were outrunning them, and that's loading in the door tile in particular that we were talking about before. Also, these enemies always remind me of Chansey from Pokemon. And yeah, you can see the little momentum build-ups there, but really some of these levels are a bit of an auto-scroller because we do have to wait for the tiles to load in. There's also like an evil grimace, which is like kind of spooky. Yeah. But we'll see the wrong warp glitch in a few different ways. So my team in this TAS came second place, so that's why some of our names are on it. But we didn't manage to find that sky wrong warp glitch because that involved sort of like clipping the blocks and getting new ones on screen. But there were a couple that were known RTA. So RTA and TAS really heavily influenced each other for this run. And basically all that the teams had to go off was this like 13-minute GDQ run from like several years ago, and that had the wrong warp glitches in it. It's a good opportunity to mention that I guess another misconception with TASs is that they're like perfect. That is absolutely not the case. We try to make them perfect, but at the end of the day, it is a human that's making the TAS, and we might miss some optimizations here and there. So this is a really good demonstration that we had 8 different teams go at the TAS, and some teams were faster on some levels, some teams were faster on other levels, and this is how we're able to snip it all together into this fully optimized run. But I'm sure that there is the potential of more time to save in this TAS, because there's always little things you might not think of and not test, and without literally just brute forcing the inputs, we'll never know if something is optimal or not.
Yeah, there's a lot that can really go into tasking as a collaborative effort, right? Getting a lot of different eyes and perspectives on things.
And it's the cool thing about the community as well. Oh, by the way, another one of those wrong warp glitches there.
Yeah.
Hey, Donald's a very fast swimmer. It must be all those McCafe coffees he's been having.
That actually makes me wonder, do they actually sell apples at McDonald's in Japan?
Maybe. We'll have to find out.
I haven't seen any in Australia.
They have apple slices in Happy Meals in Australia.
I guess that's true.
We need the English version of the game where he's jumping on the apple slices instead.
Yeah.
So yeah, quite often what will happen with TASing is, you know, a TAS will be made and then the RTA community will work away for another 3 years or so, find some improvements, and then a new TAS gets made, and it sort of works on a back and forth. The unfortunate thing about a lot of modern games is, so like the Banjo TAS, for example, took 2 years to make. I think the Spyro 3 TAS was in a similar boat, took several years to make. And unfortunately, as you're making TASs, quite often stuff will get found as you're doing it. For example, the Crash 1 TAS took a little while to make, and then they found Rolling Stone skipped the week that it came out. Definitely not salty about that at all, no. There's also some stuff that you can just do in a TAS, like for example, there's these transparent ghosts at the top of this level. Only one of them is sort of the real ghost, and the TAS will just always know which one that is. So that's, I guess it's not really RNG manipulation, but it's just knowing stuff in advance. One of my favorite examples of RNG manipulation is the Cluedo TAS, where they literally just guess who the killer is instantly without going through any of the clues. And I don't know why, but for some reason they make the trees like smile at you when you walk past. This game is just like really creepy. This level's going to have another example of a wrong warp. So the reason we're waiting for the screen to scroll here is to load in the particular tiles we want during the boss fight. You fight the boss normally, and then you want to stand on a particular spot, which is just this little brick tile here. So this wrong warp's not just going to take us into the first room of this level, it's going to take us into the third or fourth room here in Castle World. So you just boot up the level and then instantly straight across. By the way, this is the little 2-second segment that I did on this TAS. But yeah, the other team did really well here, so they optimized pretty much everything there. And the beautiful thing about TASing is you can sort of collaborate across very large distances. I've definitely done projects with people in completely different countries, and it actually works well doing that because you're in a different time zone. Like, I work on a level, and then I go to sleep, and then they work on the level some more and see if they can improve it. And it's always nice catching up with the TASs at ASM because it's a nice little community. Even though you're all running different games, you're familiar with the similar concepts.
Yeah, it's all a similar sort of tool sets across things, generally.
And yeah, these old games are pretty easy to TAS because we use the BizHawk emulator, which emulates a whole range of consoles. But sometimes, I don't know, what did you use LibTAS to do the donut one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like sticking to BizHawk because I know and love it. And it has this cool little piano roll program where if you've ever made like techno music or something where you can pick each individual note, that's basically what making a TAS is like.
This game's very loud, I'm sorry.
No, the Master System's just too loud. So this is Fantasy Zone. Oh, I got game over, damn. Yeah, this is Fantasy Zone. If anyone saw the Sonic Superstars run, this might look a little bit familiar. They had a spoof of Fantasy Zone in that game. Now, what am I doing? I'm just sitting on the title screen. This is where RNG manipulation comes into play. I am waiting for a particular demo. It is the demo of the last level. So I think that was just the level 2 demo, and I'm going to go through level 3 and 4 and 5. So the demo records about 3 seconds of actual gameplay, and then the way that they made the demo look like it went for a little bit longer is it just does completely random inputs for the demo. Like, the game just calls RNG and it's going to be like left, then up, then right, then shoot. Since we can manipulate RNG in a TAS by like hitting the pause button or whatever, we can manipulate the inputs that the demo does. If the demo's playing on the last level of the game, and just by random chance it happens to beat that level, we just get control back and we start on like the last level of the game. So yeah, now the demo is doing its random inputs, and so this is not going to look like purely optimal gameplay because you have to do some RNG manipulation, but it's kind of close to what an optimal game, optimal playthrough of this level would look like. I couldn't do it perfectly because, you know, you press the pause button to manipulate RNG, that's the only way you can do it, and there's only a certain number of frames you could hit pause on, so you're sort of limited with the number of outcomes you have. But yeah, so basically what's happened is we've skipped all the way to level 7, and that saves about 2 minutes on this game. And it's a pretty short game, it's about 5 minutes overall. The reason I didn't go to the very last level is because I still wanted to get enough money for the part shop, and we just bought the twin bombs there. So the way I had enough money there is sort of just by playing the first level before the demos, and then like resetting the game here. Also, there's like little bits of play around, so I kind of made it look like Flappy Bird in the cutscenes. That's not actually how the ship moves in practice. But yeah, in this game, normally you can get various upgrades. The twin bombs is the one that sticks around permanently, and that just lets you shoot 2 bombs rather than 1 bomb. I've also got the wide beam there. But in RTA, they get something called the heavy bomb, which just one-shots like every boss, although the heavy bombs are very expensive, so it really wasn't worth it to get the heavy bomb there. And yeah, you can just do stupid stuff like going around the bullets like that. Very dangerous, but the TAS obviously isn't going to die, because if we died, we'd just load a save state and try again. And the bosses, since we're going through a boss rush of what the game looks like, the bosses are going to have more and more health each time. We can tap the button perfectly, so if you do that, it's 30 times a second. Some other games like Metroid, for example, you can tap a little bit faster with some fancy techniques, but we can have a much higher DPS just because we can mash the button really fast. Although in this community, they do allow turbo controllers sometimes. So this boss is really scary. Those things can actually just one-shot you, and they come out really fast. You're not supposed to be able to beat that boss without upgrades, although the twin bombs was just barely enough to do it in a TAS setting. Without upgrades, even with perfect movement, I couldn't have actually beaten that. So that's why we needed the money as well. This is the best ending text in a game ever.
It was a big version of him. It was his long-lost father.
Yeah. Was my victory really worth the price I had to pay?
Yep. So who likes Wii Party?
Woo!
Yes. So, again, like the 5-minute showcase, a lot of the RNG manipulation was, getting a faster title screen that wouldn't take as long to load. They can vary quite a bit. And yes, the Korean version I found was actually maybe one of the faster versions for loading times. So yeah, now we're just playing matchup. Now, the way this game works, you've got 24 Miis, and you want to get ones that have matching colors. In a TAS, we obviously know what all of them are, so we get every single turn against the CPU, we never get a minigame, and so instead the optimization becomes about getting the most optimal layouts of the Miis. We generally want to, if we can, try to get Miis that are in the same square as one another, and to get them closer to that central point that they need to walk to, so that we can save some time across things. So that's where pretty much all of the optimization goes into this, literally just RNG, and figuring out the best order that we can go through the Miis, going through different RNG combinations, and I had similar small little programs that recreated aspects of the RNG to help me with this. This task was made very much at the last minute. When I submitted the task block, I sort of had friend connection in there, and I was like, oh well, you know, if this gets into the 5-minute showcase, I'll just put Pizzeria in. But then I decided that two of what's basically the same game would be boring, so I went and tasked this for the event. This beats the existing task by about 23 frames. I think there's probably some more work that can be done to bring this down even further, so I'm gonna continue working on it, see how much I can bring this down. But yeah, that was matchup. That was the last task of the block. I hope you enjoyed the 6 tasks that we had to showcase here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, check out tasvideos.org if you're interested in this. It's a brilliant community. They're super helpful.
Check out VLC Media Player.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Do you want to plug your YouTube channel or anything?
Oh, yeah, it's the 8bitbeast. There's sometimes tasks on there. Yeah. It's a good time.
Yep. Even more rarely, there's tasks on my channel. Yeah. I hope that you all enjoyed this. Shout out to Neo_, by the way. They were the one that suggested that we make this a block. If it wasn't for their suggestion, this would have been maybe one Donutteria TAS at best, and I think this is the best outing TASing stuff has ever had on ASM, so by far. So big shout out to Neo_ for making this happen. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yep.
Thank you so much, 8bitbeast and InputEvelution, for that TAS showcase. What an amazing couple of games that were showcased there. Just gonna read out this last donation before the end of my shift. So we have $50 from Bichisuki. Getting my crowd control donos in. Watch your back, Layla. And that's all from me today for hosting. We do have an amazing Celeste run coming up. But just before I head out, I do want to say that AusSpeedruns extends its gratitude to MSI for sponsoring ASM2024. MSI Computers stands as a global powerhouse in gaming and content creation, reaching across more than 120 countries. Renowned for their cutting-edge products, including laptops, desktops, graphic cards, monitors, motherboards, peripherals, and more, MSI works closely with the gaming community to optimize product design, embodying their commitment as a true gaming brand. And please enjoy the rest of the day's games for today. Heading out now. Thank you.
Hey AusSpeedruns community, I'm Steph from the Game on Cancer team at Cure Cancer. I wanted to say a huge thank you for all your generosity and support over the past 2 years. In that time, the AusSpeedruns community has raised more than $100,000 for Cure Cancer. These crucial funds help kickstart bright new ideas from emerging researchers across Australia to find cures for all different types of cancer. If you'd like to learn more about the cancer research projects your donations have funded, you can visit our website. Thanks again for your ongoing support and enjoy the stream.
We have a $1,000 donation from a bear with a shotgun. Let's finish the Path of Pain incentive and put the rest towards the Modern Warfare 2 thing. Thank you so much, a bear with a shotgun. We also have $100 from Eno. You got this in the bag, Layla. I'm sure no one will do anything to mess things up. Smiley face. Put this towards Path of Pain, please. So we can be in the White Palace like carpet. We have a $2.03 donation from 203, who said 230, 203. We also have a $500 donation from Chili Pepper. That's a clap, yeah. I heard about how you bullied Kenora. Who would have thought you were such a toxic gamer? Shaking my head. Shaking my head. Getting some funds to give you the taste of your own medicine. We have a $50 donation from Aaron. Woo! Games! Go Oshiro. Gamers runner's choice. Oh. Path of Pain? It's already done. Yep. Path of Pain is completed. So at the moment we have Silent Hill, pick the ending. Played Up, name the restaurant. Or Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Awesome. I'll put it towards UFO. Okay. We are ready for our next run, which is Celeste. So let's give it up for Yuki Layla.